Good stewards are happy because they see with their souls. My eye doctor told me at my last exam that I have cataracts and maybe this year he'll take them off, probably next year. But when I read this week's gospel passage, that reminded me of how important it is that we see. Sight. What a wonderful gift of God to be able to see. This is a modern parable, and it is based on a true story. Becky was blind from birth. She often wondered what it would be like to see. She thought about it. She dreamed about it, but she had no predicate, so she really didn't know what to think about when she dreamed about seeing. But then her eye doctor told her there was a new operation, and he was pretty certain that if she had it, her sight would be given to her. Had the operation, it was successful. When Becky first opened her eyes, she said, "Oh, God!" She was overwhelmed with first sight. So overwhelmed that she closed her eyes, and she kept them closed for 2 full days before her family and her doctor could persuade her to open them again. And when she opened them again, she once said, "Oh, God, it is so wonderful, so beautiful." A miracle of sight with eyes. But let's explore a much more important way to see, seeing with our souls. John Newton was a slave trader. From his mid-teens until he was 30, he bought and sold slaves and made a ton of money. But at 30 years old, he had an epiphany, he had a religious conversion, and he stopped buying and selling slaves and began exploring his faith. And at 39, John Newton became a priest in the Church of England. 15 years later, John Newton wrote what I believe is probably the most famous hymn ever. John Newton is the author of Amazing Grace. Let me sing for you the first verse of Amazing Grace. It's the last piece of the verse that ties into my homily. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I am found, was blind, but now I see. John Newton saw, not with his eyes, but with his soul. He had had lots of money and lots of pleasure as a slave trader, but it wasn't until he found God and began doing all those hard things that God asked us to do that he found happiness. And he saw how valuable life can be if we do what God tells us to do. To be first and not last, serve and not be served, love all, forgive all, All very hard things. But they can give us happiness now. And of course, heaven later. Okay, so how does this tie into our gospel passage that Deacon Jim read? Jesus takes Peter, James, and John up the mountain. He shows them himself as God. Doesn't happen so often. Hasn't happened to any of us. And they're blown away. But let me tell you, I believe that you and I are in an important way holier than Peter, James, and John. James, when the going got tough, when Jesus' passion began, ran like a scared rabbit, went up to the upper room and locked himself in. Peter denied Jesus 3 times. They had seen him as God. John, give him credit, at least was at the foot of the cross, but after that, he too went and hid. We haven't seen God. We operate totally on faith, on belief. But yet, even though we fall and fail regularly, we keep on keeping on. So without having seen Jesus as God, we live our lives of faith. So God bless us. And it does. It does give us an insight into life. It's that upside-down world of Jesus. Why should all these onerous, hard things to do give us happiness now and heaven later? We don't know. We accept it. It's faith. Final story of the morning. I've told you many times that in the final days of my wife Kaki's life, she looked terrible. No hair anywhere. I've told you before, no eyebrows, no eyelashes, no hair. She was blowing up like a beach ball. Her liver was shutting down. She was becoming jaundiced. And there was pain literally etched on her face. And one of our friends, Bill, came to me. Bill is an agnostic, and Bill asked, Mike, do you still believe in your God? And I said, yeah, Bill, more than ever. And he said, why? Why, look at Kaki. Why do you still believe? And I said, well, you got the right word. It's faith. I believe. And Bill, I know you. We know each other well. You're not a happy man. I am. Kaki is. Our faith gives us happiness. My sisters and brothers, we are all called to be good stewards. And good stewards are happy because they see with their soul.